The great meeting hall of Harmony Point Space Station buzzed with quiet conversations in dozens of alien languages. Representatives from 12 major galactic civilizations sat around the massive circular table, their different forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some had skin like blue crystals, others moved with the grace of ancient trees, and a few glowed softly in the dim lighting. Ambassador Zarathel stood up slowly, her silver hair catching the light like liquid metal. She was tall and elegant, with pointed ears and eyes that held the wisdom of 300 years. The elven diplomat wore robes of deep purple that seemed to shift color as she moved. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of the Silver Moon Consortium, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. "We gather today to discuss trade routes and mining rights," Zarathel said, her gaze sweeping across the assembled beings. "However, I must address the request from Earth. The humans ask for expanded access to our trade networks, but what do they offer in return?" She touched a control panel, and holographic images appeared above the table. The images showed small human ships, crewed by galactic standards with basic weapons and simple designs. Their fleet consists of perhaps 50 vessels, most of which would struggle against our patrol craft. Their technology is decades behind our own. Their contribution to galactic commerce is minimal. Commander Lyra Vex nodded in agreement. The Catherian warrior had blue skin marked with intricate black tattoos that told the story of her victories in battle. Her species valued strength above all else, and they had been watching human military movements for months. "Our intelligence confirms the elf's assessment," Lyra said, her voice rough like grinding stone. "The humans possess no significant military power. They have nothing we need." Around the table, other representatives murmured their agreement. The consensus was clear. Earth was a minor player, barely worth notice in the grand schemes of galactic politics. The humans had been allowed into the Galactic Council 5 years ago more out of courtesy than necessity. They were seen as primitive beings who had stumbled into space travel through luck rather than skill. Dr. Kate Johnson sat in the human delegation section, watching the alien faces carefully. She was Earth's chief medical officer and xenobiology specialist, tasked with understanding how different species thought and reacted. Through her earpiece, she could hear the translation of every word, every dismissive comment about humanity's capabilities. Her training had taught her to read alien body language, and what she saw made her smile slightly. The aliens were comfortable in their superiority. They had grown used to being the advanced civilizations, while humans played catch-up. None of them suspected what was really happening behind the scenes on Earth. None of them knew about the secret that was about to change everything. Scientist Vera Lynn, whose species looked like tall purple beings with large, expressive eyes, leaned forward in her chair. She had lived for over 800 years and had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. "In my centuries of study," she said in a melodic voice, "I have never seen a species advance as quickly as the humans claim to have done. Their official records show impossible development speeds. Either they are lying about their capabilities, or they had help from someone." The suggestion that humans might be hiding something or receiving secret assistance caused a stir among the delegates. Captain Nyx Shadowheart, a dark elf with black hair and violet eyes, laughed softly from her position near the back of the room. She was not an official delegate, but a mercenary leader whose services were sometimes needed by various governments. "If the humans had real power," she said with amusement, "they would have shown it by now. Weak species always try to appear stronger than they are." Zarathel was about to respond when the station's alert system chimed softly. The room's main screen lit up with an incoming message from the traffic control center. A young alien officer appeared on the screen, his face showing confusion and concern. "Ambassadors, we have an unexpected situation," the officer said, his voice shaking slightly. "We are detecting a massive energy signature approaching the station. The contact is requesting permission to dock, and they identify themselves as representing Earth." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the small human delegation. But Dr. Johnson and her companions looked as surprised as everyone else. The humans at the meeting were not expecting any ships from Earth. "What is the size of this vessel?" Zarathel asked, her diplomatic composure slipping slightly. The officer checked his readings twice before answering. Ambassador, the ship measures over 3 kilometers in length. It is larger than any vessel currently docked at Harmony Point. Our sensors are having difficulty getting complete readings due to some kind of interference. Commander Lyra Vex stood up abruptly, her warrior instincts alert. That is impossible. Human ships are small. We have detailed intelligence on their entire fleet. Before anyone could respond, a new voice filled the room through the communication system. It was clear, confident, and unmistakably human. Harmony Point Control. This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the USS Intrepid requesting permission to dock. We apologize for arriving unannounced, but we felt it was time to properly introduce ourselves to the galactic community. The assembled aliens looked at each other in bewilderment. Captain Nix had stopped laughing, her violet eyes now serious and calculating. Scientist Vera Lynn was frantically checking data on her personal device, trying to understand how her sensors could have missed such a massive ship. Permission granted, the traffic controller finally managed to say. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. As the USS Intrepid came into visual range, the main screen in the meeting hall switched to an external camera view. What the aliens saw defied everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. The ship was enormous, dwarfing even the largest vessels in the galactic fleet. Its hull was smooth and dark, covered with weapons arrays and sensor equipment that looked more advanced than anything they had seen before. Zarathel sank back into her chair, her mind racing through the political implications. If humans possessed such technology, every calculation about galactic power balance would need to be reconsidered. Commander Lyra Vex was studying the ship's design, noting defensive systems that could probably destroy most of the vessels currently docked at the station. Dr. Johnson smiled to herself as she watched the alien reactions. Elevated stress hormones, increased neural activity, and signs of genuine shock were visible across multiple species. The secret that Earth had been keeping for the past 2 years was finally being revealed. Captain Morgan's voice came through the speakers again, calm and professional. To the assembled delegates of the Galactic Council, I extend an invitation to tour our vessel. I believe you will find it enlightening. The meeting hall erupted in excited conversations as delegates tried to process what they had just witnessed. The humans were no longer the primitive species everyone had assumed them to be, and the galaxy would never be the same. The diplomatic shuttle carrying the alien delegates approached the USS Intrepid slowly, giving everyone aboard a chance to truly appreciate the massive vessel's size. Ambassador Zarathel pressed her face to the small window, her usual composure forgotten as she stared at the human ship. The Intrepid stretched out before them like a metal mountain floating in space, its dark hull reflecting the distant stars. This cannot be real, muttered scientist Vera Lynn, her large purple eyes wide with disbelief. She had studied technological development across the galaxy for centuries, and nothing in her experience suggested that humans could build something like this. Her instruments were giving readings that seemed impossible, showing energy signatures that should not exist with current galactic technology. Commander Lyra Vex sat quietly, but her blue hands were clenched into fists. The Catherian warrior was mentally cataloging every weapon system she could see on the ship's hull. There were energy cannons larger than most ships, missile launchers that could probably destroy entire fleets, and defensive arrays that looked more advanced than anything her own military possessed. Her pride as a member of the galaxy's strongest military force was taking a serious beating. Captain Nix Shadowheart had stopped making jokes entirely. The Dark Elf mercenary was calculating how this revelation would affect her business. If humans possessed this level of technology, every contract she had for security services might become worthless overnight. Worse, some of her clients might start seeing her as a potential threat rather than an asset. Dr. Kate Johnson watched the alien reactions with professional interest. She could see the stress responses in their body language, the way their breathing had changed, how their postures had shifted from confidence to uncertainty. This was exactly what Earth's leadership had hoped for when they decided to reveal the Intrepid's existence. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the airlock cycled open. Captain Lisa Morgan stood waiting for them in the docking bay, wearing a simple blue uniform that somehow managed to look more impressive than the elaborate ceremonial clothing worn by some of the alien delegates. She was tall for a human, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Welcome aboard the USS Intrepid," Captain Morgan said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast space around them. The docking bay alone was larger than most, ships with enough room to hold dozens of smaller vessels. "I hope you will find your visit educational." As they walked through the ship's corridors, the aliens found themselves constantly surprised by what they saw. The passages were wide and well lit, with smooth walls that seemed to be made from a single piece of metal. There were no visible joints or seams anywhere, suggesting manufacturing techniques that none of them recognized. Commander Amy Carter joined the group as they entered the engineering section. She was a young woman with red hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and she moved with the confidence of someone who understood every system on the ship. "Our fusion reactors produce enough power to supply a small city," she explained casually, as if such capabilities were normal for human vessels. The aliens stared through reinforced windows at machinery that hummed with barely contained energy. The reactors were the size of buildings, connected to systems that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Zarathel had seen elven ships that were considered marvels of engineering, but nothing compared to what the humans had built. "How is artificial gravity maintained throughout such a large vessel?" Vera Lynn asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. She pulled out a scanner and began taking readings, her hands shaking slightly as she worked. "Gravitational manipulation systems," Amy replied with a smile. "We can adjust gravity in any section of the ship from 0 to 3 times Earth normal. It is useful for both crew comfort and tactical applications." The implications of that statement hit the military representatives immediately. A ship that could vary its gravity could perform maneuvers that would be impossible for vessels with fixed gravitational systems. It could accelerate in ways that would crush the crews of conventional ships while keeping its own people safe and comfortable. Their next stop was the fighter bay, where Lieutenant Maya Brooks was conducting a training exercise. The young pilot had black hair and dark eyes that sparkled with excitement as she explained the capabilities of the small craft around them. The fighters looked more like works of art than weapons, with curved lines and surfaces that seemed to flow like water. "Each fighter can achieve speeds that approach light speed within a solar system," Maya said proudly. "They use drives that manipulate space-time itself, allowing for maneuvers that conventional physics would consider impossible." Commander Lyra Vex stepped closer to one of the fighters, running her blue hands along its smooth surface. The metal felt warm to the touch, and she could sense energy flowing through it even when the ship was powered down. "What materials are used in construction?" she asked, her warrior's mind trying to assess weaknesses. "That information is classified," Maya replied with a grin that took the sting out of the refusal. "But I can tell you that these ships have never lost a pilot in combat. The safety systems are more advanced than anything we used to have." As they continued through the ship, the aliens saw medical facilities that could treat injuries from multiple species simultaneously, manufacturing bays that could construct complex machinery from raw materials, and communication arrays that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Every system was more advanced than what they had on their own ships. Captain Nix found herself particularly interested in the security systems. The Dark Elf noticed that there were very few visible weapons or guards, yet she felt constantly watched. When she asked about this, Captain Morgan smiled mysteriously and explained that the ship's computer systems could track every person aboard and respond to threats faster than any organic security force. The tour reached its climax when they entered the command center. The room was enormous, with holographic displays showing real-time information about every major fleet in the galaxy. Zarathel gasped when she recognized the formation patterns of Silver Moon Consortium ships that were supposed to be on secret missions. "You have been watching us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have been watching everyone," Captain Morgan replied calmly. "Earth's policy has always been to understand our neighbors before making ourselves known. We felt it was the responsible approach." Vera Lynn was studying the displays with growing amazement. The humans had detailed information about technological developments across dozens of civilizations, trade routes that were supposed to be secret, and military movements that even she did not know about. "How long have you been capable of this level of observation?" she asked. "Several years," Dr. Johnson answered, speaking for the first time during the tour. "We wanted to make sure we understood galactic politics before revealing our capabilities. The last thing anyone wanted was to cause unnecessary alarm." The irony of that statement was not lost on any of the aliens present. They were all definitely feeling alarmed now, but it was too late to do anything about it. The humans had already shown that they knew more about galactic affairs than most governments knew about themselves. As the tour concluded and the delegates prepared to return to Harmony Point, each alien was processing the implications of what they had seen in their own way. The humans had not just hidden advanced technology, they had hidden an entirely different level of civilization development. Every assumption about Earth's place in galactic politics would need to be reconsidered. Captain Morgan escorted them back to the docking bay personally. "I hope this visit has been informative," she said as they prepared to board their shuttle. "Earth looks forward to more productive relationships with all members of the galactic community." As their shuttle pulled away from the Intrepid, the aliens sat in stunned silence. The galaxy had just become a much more complicated place, and none of them were quite sure what that meant for their own civilizations. The journey back to their homeworlds gave the alien delegates plenty of time to think about what they had seen aboard the USS Intrepid. Each of them faced the difficult task of explaining to their governments that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. The political implications were staggering, and the responses from their leaders would shape the future of galactic relations. Ambassador Zarathel arrived at the Silvermoon Consortium's capital world to find the ruling council already in emergency session. News of the human supercarrier had spread quickly through diplomatic channels, and the Elven leadership was struggling to understand how their intelligence networks had failed so completely. The council chamber, usually a place of calm deliberation, buzzed with nervous energy as ancient elves tried to process information that challenged their fundamental assumptions about galactic power structures. "You are certain of what you observed?" asked Councillor Thrandiel, his silver beard trembling slightly as he spoke. He had led the consortium for 200 years and had never encountered a situation quite like this one. Zarathel nodded gravely. "The human vessel surpasses anything in our fleet. Their technology appears to be decades ahead of our own in several key areas. We must reconsider our entire approach to Earth relations." The council erupted in heated discussion. Some members argued that the humans must have received assistance from an unknown alien civilization, while others suggested that Earth had discovered some ancient technology that gave them an unfair advantage. A few voices called for immediate military action to prevent human expansion, but Zarathel quickly dismissed such suggestions as both impractical and dangerous. Meanwhile, Commander Lyra Vex faced a different challenge when she returned to the Kytherian Empire. Her people valued strength and military prowess above all else, and the revelation that humans possessed superior firepower created a crisis of identity within the warrior culture. The Imperial War Council gathered in their great hall, where the walls were decorated with weapons captured from defeated enemies over the centuries. "Are you suggesting that these humans could defeat our fleets in battle?" demanded General Corax. His blue skin flushed darker with anger and disbelief. The Kytherians had not faced a superior military force in over 50 years, and the concept was difficult for them to accept. Lyra chose her words carefully. "I am saying that we should not assume victory in any conflict with Earth. Their defensive systems alone could probably destroy most of our current ships before we could get within weapons range. We need to approach them as equals, not as inferiors." The admission sent shockwaves through the Imperial hierarchy. If the Kytherians could not count on military superiority, they would need to develop entirely new diplomatic strategies. Some generals called for increased military spending to match human capabilities, while others suggested that an alliance with Earth might be more beneficial than competition. Captain Nyx Shadowheart returned to her mercenary base with her mind racing through the business implications of Earth's revelation. Her organization had built its reputation on providing security services that major governments could not or would not provide themselves. If humans possessed the kind of technology she had witnessed, the entire mercenary industry might become obsolete overnight. She called together her senior captains, a diverse group of beings from various species who had chosen the mercenary life for different reasons. The meeting took place in her private office, a room decorated with trophies from successful missions and weapons from across the galaxy. "The game has changed," Nyx announced without preamble. "Earth is not the weak civilization we thought it was. They have been watching all of us while we assumed they were harmless. We need to decide whether to approach them as potential allies or prepare for them to become our biggest competitors." Her lieutenants argued among themselves about the best course of action. Some suggested that they should offer their services to human interests, while others warned that Earth might try to eliminate mercenary organizations altogether. The uncertainty was troubling for people who made their living by understanding and exploiting the weaknesses of others. Scientist Vera Lynn faced perhaps the greatest challenge of all when she returned to her research institute. Her life's work had been documenting and understanding technological development patterns across the galaxy, and the human supercarrier represented a complete contradiction to everything she thought she knew. Her colleagues gathered in the Institute's main laboratory, where she had to explain how her theories about technological advancement had been proven wrong. The humans have achieved in decades what most civilizations require centuries to develop, she said, her melodic voice heavy with confusion. Either they have discovered something fundamental that we have missed, or they received assistance from a source we know nothing about. The scientific community was divided in their response. Some researchers demanded access to human technology for study, while others suggested that Earth's advancement might represent a threat to the natural order of galactic development. A few proposed that humanity's rapid progress proved that their current theories about technological evolution were incomplete. While the alien government struggled to understand the implications of Earth's revelation, Dr. Kate Johnson was monitoring their responses from her position aboard the Intrepid. Her expertise in xenobiology and psychology allowed her to predict how different species would react to the shock of discovering human capabilities. She prepared detailed reports for Captain Morgan about the likely political and military responses from each major civilization. The elves will try to maintain their diplomatic superiority through negotiation and alliance building, she explained during a senior staff meeting. The Catherians will either seek military alliance or begin a major arms buildup. The mercenary groups will probably approach us directly to assess opportunities and threats. Captain Morgan nodded thoughtfully. Earth's leadership had anticipated these reactions, but having confirmation helped them prepare appropriate responses. The revelation of the Intrepid had been carefully timed to coincide with other diplomatic initiatives that would help shape the galactic community's reaction to human capabilities. Meanwhile, messages began arriving at Earth's diplomatic offices from governments across the galaxy. Some requested immediate meetings to discuss trade agreements, while others demanded explanations about human surveillance activities. A few civilizations that had previously ignored Earth entirely suddenly expressed interest in establishing formal relations. Commander Amy Carter found herself working around the clock to prepare for the flood of visitors who would undoubtedly want to tour more human facilities. The engineering staff began modifying other ships in the fleet to accommodate alien delegations, while security teams developed protocols for managing potentially hostile guests. Lieutenant Maya Brooks received requests from several alien military organizations for combat demonstrations and training exchanges. The young pilot was excited about the prospect of testing her skills against different species, but she also understood the political sensitivity of such activities. Every maneuver would be analyzed for weaknesses and tactical information. The Galactic Council called for an emergency session to address Earth's new status in galactic politics. Traditional voting blocs began to fracture as smaller civilizations saw opportunities to align themselves with human interests against the established powers. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic peace for decades was suddenly in question. Ambassador Zarathel found herself in the unusual position of advocating for accommodation with a species that her people had previously dismissed as insignificant. The political skills that had served her well in traditional diplomacy were being tested by a situation that had no precedent in galactic history. As news of the human supercarrier spread throughout the galaxy, public reactions varied widely. Some species viewed Earth's emergence as an exciting development that might bring new opportunities for advancement and cooperation. Others saw it as a threat to the established order that had kept their civilizations safe and prosperous for generations. The galaxy was entering a new age, and nobody was quite sure what that would mean for the future of interstellar civilization. 3 months after the revelation at Harmony Point, the USS Intrepid had become the center of a new kind of diplomacy. Captain Lisa Morgan had established a permanent diplomatic quarters aboard the ship, where representatives from various civilizations could stay for extended negotiations. The first to accept this arrangement was Ambassador Zarathel, who arrived with a small staff for what was planned as a month-long residency. The elven diplomat had changed since her first encounter with human technology. Gone was the casual dismissiveness she had once shown toward Earth, replaced by a careful respect that bordered on fascination. She spent her mornings in meetings with Captain Morgan, discussing trade agreements and security partnerships, but her afternoons were often spent exploring different sections of the ship. "Your people have achieved something remarkable," Zarathel said during one of their private dinners in the captain's quarters. The room was designed to be comfortable for multiple species, with adjustable lighting and furniture that could accommodate different physical needs. "In 300 years of diplomatic service, I have never seen a civilization advance so rapidly while maintaining such stability." Captain Morgan smiled as she sipped her coffee. "Stability was our primary concern when we began this project. We watched how other species handled rapid technological advancement, and we learned from their mistakes. Every system on this ship was tested not just for effectiveness, but for safety and social impact." Their conversations had evolved from formal diplomatic exchanges to something approaching friendship. Zarathel found herself sharing details about elven society that she had never discussed with other species, while Captain Morgan explained aspects of human psychology and culture that helped the elf understand how Earth had achieved its technological breakthroughs. In the engineering sections, Commander Amy Carter was working closely with scientist Virulin on a joint research project. The ancient aliens' vast knowledge combined with human innovation was producing results that surprised both of them. They had spent weeks studying the theoretical foundations of faster-than-light communication, and their collaboration was yielding breakthrough discoveries. "Your mathematics are elegant," Virulin said as they reviewed equations on a holographic display. Her purple skin had a slight glow when she was excited about scientific discoveries, and she had been glowing frequently. During their sessions, "My people developed similar theories centuries ago, but we never thought to apply them in this way." Amy grinned as she manipulated the mathematical models. "That is the advantage of being newcomers to galactic science. We do not know what is supposed to be impossible, so we try things that more experienced civilizations would dismiss." Their work was creating new theoretical frameworks that could revolutionize space travel and communication across the galaxy. Other scientists from both species had begun requesting access to their research, and there was talk of establishing a permanent joint research facility. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Maya Brooks had found an unexpected rival and friend in Commander Lyra, Vex. The Catherian warrior had requested permission to stay aboard the Intrepid for combat training exchanges, and their sparring sessions had become legendary among both human and alien crew members. "Your fighting style is unlike anything in Catherian tradition," Lyra said, as they finished a particularly intense practice session in the ship's gymnasium. Her blue skin was marked with new bruises, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. "You combine precision with unpredictability in ways that should not work." Maya laughed as she toweled off the sweat from their workout. "My instructors always said I was too creative for standard military tactics. They used to complain that I made up new maneuvers during combat exercises instead of following the approved procedures." Their friendship had developed through mutual respect for each other's skills. Lyra's honor-bound warrior culture resonated with Maya's dedication to excellence, while the human pilot's innovative thinking challenged the Catherians' traditional approaches to combat. Their training sessions were helping both species develop new tactical concepts. Dr. Kate Johnson had become the ship's unofficial cultural ambassador, providing medical care for alien crew members while learning about their physiologies and social structures. Her medical bay had been modified to accommodate the needs of multiple species, and she had treated everything from minor injuries to serious illnesses that required understanding of alien biology. Each species presents unique challenges, she explained to a group of human medical students during one of her regular training sessions. But the basic principles of care and compassion translate across all cultures. Understanding their biology is important, but understanding their psychology is often more crucial for effective treatment. Her work had earned the trust of alien crew members who initially viewed humans with suspicion. Her compassionate approach and professional competence had made her one of the most respected people aboard the ship, regardless of species. Captain Nick Shadowheart had negotiated a contract to provide security services for Earth's expanding trade routes. Her mercenary organization had established a base on one of the Intrepid's smaller support vessels where her diverse crew could work alongside human security forces. The arrangement was proving beneficial for both parties. "Your people understand practical politics," Nix said during a meeting with Captain Morgan. The Dark Elf had maintained her pragmatic approach to business, but her respect for human capabilities had grown significantly. "Most civilizations make the mistake of believing their own propaganda about their superiority. You seem to understand that reputation and reality are different things." Her mercenary network was providing valuable intelligence about potential threats to human expansion, while Earth's protection allowed her operations to grow significantly. The partnership was challenging traditional assumptions about how major powers interacted with independent organizations. However, not all reactions to Earth's emergence were positive. Intelligence reports indicated that several civilizations were considering coordinated action against human expansion. The Hegemony Alliance, a group of species that had dominated galactic trade for centuries, viewed Earth as a direct threat to their economic interests. Dr. Johnson monitored communications from various alien governments, noting increased military activities and diplomatic meetings that excluded human representatives. Her psychological profiles suggested that some species were moving beyond shock and confusion toward active hostility. "We may face direct challenges soon," she warned during a senior staff meeting. "Several civilizations are showing signs of coordinating their responses to our presence. They view our technological advancement as either impossible or illegitimate." Captain Morgan had anticipated such reactions, but hoped that positive relationships with species like the Elves and Cytherians would help moderate any aggressive impulses. The month-long diplomatic residencies were designed partly to create personal relationships that would make military action more difficult to justify. Commander Amy Carter began working with alien engineers to develop defensive systems that could protect Earth's expanding interests without appearing overly aggressive. The challenge was to demonstrate human capabilities while avoiding the appearance of threatening other civilizations. Lieutenant Maya Brooks received reports of unusual military exercises being conducted by several alien fleets. Her analysis suggested that some species were developing tactics specifically designed to counter human technological advantages, which meant that the period of peaceful revelation might be coming to an end. The relationships being forged aboard. The Intrepid were creating new patterns of cooperation that had never existed in galactic politics. Personal friendships between individuals from different species were leading to official partnerships between their governments. But these positive developments were occurring against a background of growing tension from civilizations that felt threatened by human emergence. Zarathel extended her diplomatic residency for another month, recognizing that the relationships she was building with human leaders would be crucial for her people's future. Vera Lynn requested permanent assignment to the Joint Research Project, believing that scientific cooperation offered the best path forward for galactic civilization. Lyra Vex began advocating for formal military alliance between the Cytherian Empire and Earth, arguing that warrior cultures should stand together against those who would use politics to achieve what they could not accomplish through honest combat. The galaxy was dividing into those who embraced change and those who feared it, with Earth at the center of the conflict. The emergency began with a distress signal from the outer rim of the galaxy. Ships were disappearing without explanation. Entire colonies were going silent, and the few survivors who escaped spoke of vessels that could phase in and out of normal space. The attackers called themselves the Void Runners, and their technology seemed designed specifically to counter every defensive system known to galactic civilization. Ambassador Zarathel was in the middle of a diplomatic dinner with Captain Morgan when the first reports arrived. The elegant elf immediately contacted the Silver Moon Consortium, only to discover that 3 of their outer colonies had already been attacked. The traditional elven defensive strategies were proving completely ineffective against enemies who could disappear before retaliation was possible. "We need to call an emergency session of the Galactic Council," Zarathel said, her usual composure cracking under the stress of the situation. "This threat affects everyone, regardless of our political differences." Commander Lyra Vex was conducting training exercises when her own government contacted her with similar news. The Cytherian Empire's most powerful battleships had engaged the Void Runners and been destroyed within minutes. The warrior culture that had dominated galactic military affairs for decades was suddenly facing an enemy they could not defeat through traditional combat. "This is impossible," Lyra said, her blue fists clenched in frustration as she reviewed the battle reports. "Our ships carry enough firepower to destroy planets, but these Void Runners phase out of normal space before our weapons can lock onto them." Captain Morgan called an immediate meeting of all senior staff and alien representatives aboard the Intrepid. The ship's main conference room filled quickly with humans and aliens working together to understand the new threat. Dr. Kate Johnson presented her analysis of the survivor reports, while Commander Amy Carter began working on possible technological solutions. The Void Runners appear to use some form of dimensional shifting, Amy explained as she displayed technical diagrams on the room's holographic projectors. They can exist partially outside normal space, which makes them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Scientist Vera Lynn studied the data with growing alarm. Her centuries of experience had never included anything like the technology being described. "This level of dimensional manipulation should not be possible," she said, her purple skin pale with worry. "Either they have discovered something entirely new, or they are using principles that we have not yet understood." The Galactic Council's emergency session was held virtually, with representatives participating from wherever they happened to be when the crisis began. The usual political divisions were temporarily set aside as civilizations that had been enemies for centuries found themselves facing a common threat that none of them could handle alone. "The Hegemony Alliance lost 6 major battle stations in the first wave of attacks," reported one delegate, his voice shaking with fear. "Our combined fleets engaged the enemy and achieved 0 successful hits. They destroyed our ships and vanished before we could even determine their numbers." Captain Nyx Shadowheart joined the meeting from her mercenary base, bringing intelligence that her network had gathered from across the galaxy. The Dark Elf's contacts in the galactic underworld had provided information that government sources had missed. "My sources indicate that the Void Runners have been observing us for months," Nyx reported grimly. "They studied our defensive systems and developed countermeasures before launching their attacks. This was not a random assault. It was a carefully planned invasion." The assembled delegates turned to Captain Morgan with desperate hope. If anyone had a solution to this crisis, it would be the humans who had already demonstrated technological capabilities beyond what anyone had thought possible. "Earth will contribute the Intrepid as flagship for a joint defense force," Captain Morgan announced. "But only if command decisions are made collectively rather than following traditional hierarchies. This threat requires innovation and cooperation, not the same failed strategies that have proven ineffective." The proposal shocked the galactic representatives. No major military operation in recorded history had been conducted without clear command authority based on species hierarchy. But the desperate situation forced acceptance of Captain Morgan's conditions. Commander Amy Carter worked frantically with alien engineers to modify existing defensive systems. Her collaboration with Vera Lynn had provided theoretical foundations. That proved crucial for developing new weapons. Together, they created targeting systems that could track enemies who existed partially outside normal space. "The key is to predict where they will rematerialize," Amy explained during a technical briefing that included engineers from a dozen different species. "Their dimensional shifts follow mathematical patterns that we can calculate if we have enough processing power." Lieutenant Maya Brooks was placed in command of a mixed squadron that included pilots from 6 different species. The coordination required rapid development of communication protocols and tactical procedures that had never been attempted before. Her innovative flying style proved crucial for developing maneuvers that the Void Runners had not anticipated. "We cannot fight them using conventional formations," Maya told her diverse group of pilots. "Each species has different strengths and capabilities. We need to use those differences as advantages rather than trying to make everyone fight the same way." Dr. Kate Johnson established emergency medical facilities that could treat casualties from multiple species simultaneously. Her work also included analyzing Void Runner technology captured from destroyed enemy ships, leading to disturbing discoveries about their origins and intentions. "They are not invaders in the traditional sense," she reported during a senior staff meeting. "The Void Runners appear to be explorers from another dimension who view our universe as empty space that they can claim for themselves. They do not recognize us as legitimate inhabitants. Captain Nyx's mercenary network proved invaluable for gathering intelligence about Void Runner movements and weaknesses. Her willingness to risk her organization for the greater good demonstrated how Earth's emergence had changed existing power dynamics throughout the galaxy. The climactic battle took place near Harmony Point, where the combined fleet made its desperate stand. The engagement showcased not just military cooperation, but the fundamental changes in galactic politics that Earth's revelation had created. Ships that had never worked together were suddenly coordinating attacks and sharing defensive systems. Zarathel found herself serving as diplomatic liaison between species that had been enemies for generations. Her skill at negotiation proved as crucial as any weapon system in maintaining the fragile alliance during the intense combat. Lyra Vex led boarding actions against Void Runner vessels, her warrior skills combining with human tactical innovations to develop new methods of close combat in dimensional environments. The experience taught both species valuable lessons about cooperation under extreme pressure. The victory came not through superior firepower, but through unprecedented cooperation and strategic innovation. The diverse capabilities of different species, coordinated through human organizational skills, proved more effective than any single civilization could have achieved alone. In the aftermath, the galaxy found itself fundamentally changed. The old hierarchies based on military power and economic dominance had been replaced by new partnerships based on mutual respect and shared capabilities. Captain Morgan was appointed to the newly created Galactic Security Council, while Earth was formally recognized as a major power. Ambassador Zarathel returned to her people as an advocate for this new age of cooperation, carrying with her plans for expanded partnerships with human civilization. Commander Lyra Vex recommended formal military alliance between the Kytherian Empire and Earth, recognizing that strength came through unity rather than dominance. Scientist Vera Lynn established a permanent research institute aboard the Intrepid, where scientists from multiple species could work together on projects that no single civilization could complete alone. Her collaboration with human researchers had proven that innovation flourished when different perspectives were combined. Captain Nyx Shadowheart found that her mercenary organization had evolved into something closer to a galactic security service, providing protection and intelligence gathering for the new cooperative framework that was emerging throughout known space. The USS Intrepid had become more than just a symbol of human technological achievement. It had become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization where cooperation mattered more than competition, and where diversity of thought and capability was valued above traditional power structures. Earth's hidden strength had not just captivated the galactic elite. It had transformed them into something better than they had been before.